Your energy is not always missing. Sometimes it is divided among a tired body, a restless breath, and attention pulled in 10 directions. Not a metaphor. You can feel this division when your muscles are still, your breathing is shallow, and your mind keeps reaching elsewhere. You may call it low motivation, but the stranger truth is that your reserves can remain partly full while your usable energy feels unavailable. What if the problem is not how much energy you possess, but whether your body, breath, and awareness are moving in one direction? Daoist internal alchemy offered a map for this problem through 3 treasures: Jing, meaning essence; Qi, meaning vital breath; and Shen, meaning spirit. This is not the other famous Daoist triad of compassion, frugality, and humility associated with Chapter 67 of the Tao Te Ching. Here, the 3 treasures describe a traditional body-mind model: what sustains you, what moves through you, and what illuminates your experience. What does Jing describe? It is usually translated as essence, pointing toward the deep material reserve from which growth, recovery, and endurance become possible. It is not a laboratory, fuel modern science has isolated, and it should not be mistaken for a single hormone, organ, or measurable fluid. Yet the metaphor becomes useful when you notice how sleep, nourishment, illness, strain, and recovery change the capacity you bring into a day. A person can feel mentally urgent while physically depleted. Stimulation may raise output briefly, but it does not automatically restore the underlying reserve. Have you noticed that another coffee can sharpen the edge of exhaustion without producing the grounded strength you were actually searching for? Qi is often translated as energy, but breath, movement, function, and transformation are closer to how the old term behaves in practice. Qi is not electricity hidden in your meridians, and traditional channels should not be presented as anatomical tubes that dissection simply failed to find. As a working metaphor, Qi asks whether breathing, posture, circulation, warmth, and action form a coordinated pattern or compete against one another. Shen means spirit, but here you can understand it as the quality of awareness that makes perception clear, stable, responsive, and present. It does not need to mean a ghost inside the skull. It can name how gathered or fragmented your conscious presence feels right now. What happens when the treasures separate? Jing becomes stored potential, Qi becomes agitation, and Shen becomes a bright lamp with no oil. The old sequence therefore begins below thought. Protect the reserve, regulate the movement, and only then ask awareness to become quiet. Why does that order matter? Forcing concentration while your body is exhausted and your breathing is hurried can turn meditation into another performance test. An early Chinese text called the Nai, usually translated as inward training, links bodily alignment, regulated breathing, and a tranquil heart-mind. Heart-mind translates Shin, a classical Chinese term that does not sharply divide feeling from thinking in the modern Western way. The Nai does not describe tranquility as collapse. Its imagery points toward an ordered inner condition in which perception and action can become less confused. Why compare essence to an inner spring? The image suggests protected reserve, but it is not a medical promise of endless vitality. In ordinary life, your reserve leaks through simpler doors: shortened sleep, irregular meals, chronic overcommitment, physical inactivity, and recovery that never arrives. In 2003, Hans van Dongen and colleagues restricted healthy adults to 4, 6, or 8 hours in bed across 14 nights. What happened across those nights? The 4-hour and 6-hour groups developed cumulative cognitive deficits that subjective sleepiness did not fully track. That study does not prove Jing exists. It does show why an ancient reserve metaphor can point toward a real modern mistake: underestimating accumulated strain. Protecting Jing begins when rest stops being a reward earned after depletion and becomes part of the structure that prevents depletion. What changes when you stop asking your mind to manufacture energy and first ask whether your body has been given what recovery requires? Once the reserve is respected, the second treasure becomes easier to understand. Qi concerns change, inhaling and exhaling, warming and cooling, gathering and releasing. Your diaphragm, the dome-shaped breathing muscle beneath your lungs, descends during inhalation and rises again as air leaves the body. When breathing becomes slow and comfortable, that mechanical rhythm changes pressure inside the chest and abdomen, while the heartbeat continues responding beat by beat. Andrea Zaccaro and colleagues reviewed slow breathing research in 2018 and reported recurring links with autonomic, brain, and psychological measures. Autonomic means the largely automatic regulation of functions, such as heart rate and digestion, although breathing gives you an unusual doorway into that system. What does heart rate variability mean? It describes small timing differences between heartbeats, and flexible variation can reflect adaptive regulation. The review did not establish mystical channels, and its studies varied in quality. It supports careful breathing practice, not supernatural certainty. Why should regulating qi avoid huge breaths? Overbreathing can lower carbon dioxide too quickly and make you lightheaded or uncomfortable. Posture also changes the available pattern. A collapsed rib cage, clenched jaw, and rigid belly make a quiet breath harder to receive. Let the spine rise without stiffness. Release the jaw and allow the lower ribs and belly to move without being pushed outward. A slightly longer exhalation can feel settling because it changes the rhythm of respiratory and cardiac signals. But comfort remains more important than counting. Why do researchers often study about 6 breaths per minute? It is a useful laboratory range, not a universal law for every body. If slow breathing produces air hunger, tingling, dizziness, or anxiety, return to an ordinary breath. Regulation is not a contest with your nervous system. What can a short walk change? It can reorganize posture, temperature, breathing, and attention without pretending to replenish a magical substance. Sometimes, scattered energy is not asking for deeper stillness. It is asking for enough physical movement to let accumulated activation complete its course. Activation itself is not the enemy. The problem is activation without resolution. Dozens of beginnings, no completed action, and no clear return to rest. When one action finishes, the breath settles and the body receives a pause. Usable energy often feels less fragmented, even before circumstances change. What then is Shen? The third treasure moves the Daoist map from capacity and movement toward the organization of awareness itself. Attention is selective by nature. To notice one signal clearly, your brain must reduce the priority of countless other sights, sounds, memories, and intentions. Every unfinished message, open tab, unresolved decision, and anticipated interruption can leave a small claim on that selection process. What remains after you switch tasks? Sophie Leroy called it attention residue. Some attention stays attached to the previous task. In her 2009 experiments, unfinished work made it harder for participants to transition fully, and performance on the next task could suffer. That finding concerns task performance, not Daoist energy. Still, it gives modern language to the feeling that part of you never arrived here. Why can one notification feel so expensive? It can reopen a goal, emotion, or social obligation long after the screen disappears. Amishi Jha, Jason Krompinger, and Michael Bam reported in 2007 that mindfulness training modified specific attention measures in their participant groups. That does not mean meditation makes attention perfect. It suggests attention can be trained, and different forms of practice may influence different functions. In Daoist language, settling Shen means letting the scattered sparks return, until awareness becomes one steady lamp instead of many competing flashes. What does a settled mind contain? Sound, sensation, and thought can remain while awareness feels less compelled to chase every event. Nor does settled Shen require suppressing emotion. Sadness, excitement, and uncertainty can be present without each one seizing the entire field. The difference is between experiencing a thought and feeding a loop. One moves through awareness. The other repeatedly recruits breath, muscle, and attention. Can you see the pattern now? What you call scattered energy may be reserve, activation, and attention losing coordination at the same time. The 3 treasures become practical when they are treated as an order of operations. Support the body, organize the breath, then place attention deliberately. This map should not replace anatomy or medical care. Its value lies in asking 3 different questions instead of calling every difficulty low energy. What if scattered energy needs less input, not more? Try fewer commitments, fewer switches, and fewer attempts to override fatigue. Protecting Jing today may mean choosing a consistent bedtime, eating adequately, scheduling recovery, and respecting pain or illness instead of negotiating with it. It may also mean declining one demand before resentment and exhaustion make the decision for you. Boundaries are sometimes reserve management in social form. Regulating qi may mean finishing one small physical loop, wash the cup, answer the chosen message, walk the block, then consciously stop. What does completion change? The body can release a posture. The breath can change phase. And attention can stop guarding an unfinished edge. 3 comfortable breaths can mark that completion. Inhale without lifting the shoulders. Then let each exhalation leave a little more, slowly. Settling Shen may begin by naming the single task now in front of you and writing every competing task somewhere trustworthy for later. This matters because your attention should not have to act as a storage system. A written reminder lets awareness release the job of rehearsal. Which signal is asking for care? Check heaviness behind the eyes, tension around the jaw, and whether breath reaches the lower ribs. Heavy eyes may ask for sleep. A clenched jaw may ask for release. A hurried breath may ask for a slower transition. Breathing cannot solve hunger, infection, grief, unsafe work, or financial pressure. A practice is useful only when it does not hide the real condition. Can this model become another accusation? Use it as a lens instead. Feeling scattered does not mean you failed spiritually. Tonight you can test the map in 5 quiet minutes. No special posture, breath retention, visualization power, or belief is required. Sit in a chair or on the edge of your bed with both feet supported. Let the spine rise naturally and the hands rest low. What happens during the first minute? Do nothing to the breath. Feel your body's weight and notice what is held without fixing it. Release only what is unnecessary. The tongue from the roof of the mouth, the shoulders from the ears, and the belly from its brace. For the next 2 minutes, breathe quietly through the nose if comfortable. Let the exhalation become slightly longer without emptying the lungs by force. You might inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 6, but abandon the count immediately if it creates strain, dizziness, or air hunger. Can you feel breath as movement rather than an idea? Notice lower ribs widening, abdomen responding, and the body becoming less defended. Do not hunt for a dramatic sensation. Let 3 ordinary cycles pass while candlelight, heartbeat, and breath move at their different natural speeds. Where should attention rest for the final 2 minutes? Choose below the navel, traditionally called the lower dantian, or lower elixir field. The lower dantian is not a hidden organ. Use it simply as a stable place to feel breath movement and gather wandering attention. When thought wanders, notice where it went and return. The return is not evidence of failure. The return is the actual repetition being trained. What if emptiness is not the goal? You are teaching awareness to release one unfinished thread without destroying or denying it. At the end, take 1 normal breath, open your eyes, and stand slowly. Choose the next action before reaching for another source of stimulation. What result should you expect? Look for 1 softened muscle, 1 complete exhalation, or 1 thought that no longer demands pursuit. Repeated over days, the practice becomes less about producing calm and more about recognizing which treasure needs care before scattering accelerates. Ask 3 questions when energy fragments. Does your body need recovery? Does your activation need completion? Does your attention need 1 clear home? Your energy is not always missing. Sometimes it is waiting for your reserve, your breath, and your awareness to become one direction again.